Hello Internet, and welcome to a slightly different video. This video I'm going to be talking to you about the RNG in Pokemon, which is something, we've all got to accept that it's a part of the game. We've all got to play around it. I feel like I'm probably, one of the better qualified, players to talk about RNG, really, because, I use Swagger on my team, I've got Thunderwave on my team, I've got Spore, so I've got Sleep Turns on my team, I use Bullet Seed, so there's that, I use Rock Slide on my team as well. Like, the team that I used in the Arnhem Regional that you'll have hopefully seen all of those videos from, it's such an RNG heavy team, which means things can go awfully right. It means things can go awfully wrong as well, but it means that if things do go wrong, I can sometimes claw my way back. It gives me opportunities that I might not have otherwise had if I didn't have tricks up my sleeve like a Swagger or a Thunderwave or a Rock Slide flinch or something like that. So we're not going to be on Showdown. We're actually going to be probably not. We're not going to be doing too much on the visual side. I'm just going to be talking to you with my mouth here, and hopefully you'll get something out of this video at least. But I don't know, Pokemon, it's on one side it's a very cold game. It is about the numbers, it is about the calculations, it is about making the right moves, making the predictions, like chess in a way. You've got to outplay your opponent and win, basically. Make the right moves, win the game. But it's not as straightforward as that is. I'm sure you all do play Pokemon, so you know that the RNG is involved. It can be a bit of a fickle game at times. It is part of the game though, and as a competitive player you need to look at the game that you play and you need to analyze everything that goes on. You need to take it into account. You need to play around it and at times play with it, I suppose. But RNG, it's it turns Pokemon from a chess game basically into something a bit different. It can make it a very frustrating game. It can make it basically a very addictive game. It can add uncertainty into games. It can add the sort of gambling element into the game, which is basically what I guess when making the game they introduced to make the game interesting, to make it not just a game of get strong Pokemon, make right moves, hit Pokemon, knock them out, basically. So we've got to play Pokemon, and VGC games aren't necessarily long games as well, but you've basically got to which means that any little bit of hacks, as people call it, any RNG that doesn't go in your favor can make a big difference. But you've got to try and play around it. You've got to try and maximize your chances to win, minimize your chances of the RNG rolling out of your favor. And it's one of those things, as well as predicting your opponent, you've got to try and play the numbers game in your head and make the safe moves as well. So people, maybe it's a trait of maybe a lesser experienced player, is to basically, if you lose a game, to just blame it on hacks. It was the hacks' fault, or whatever. I lost because of, I got this flinch, and that one flinch cost me the game. Okay, so maybe that's true, but a flinch is 30% if we're going by Rock Slide, and 30% is actually quite a chunky percentage. Like, if I had my all my possessions on a bet that I had a 30% chance of losing, I would not put that on there. And Pokemon's all about winning. Competitive VGC, it's all about winning. You go into your games trying to win the game. That's what I'm saying. Obviously there's we all like the community and everything, but in this terms that we're speaking about, when you're in the game, when you want to win it. So you've got to not allow things for this to happen. If you did get that Rock Slide flinch or whatever that cost you the game, then yeah, alright. But if you look back at your game, maybe you could have played the game a little bit differently. Maybe you could have basically played in a way that didn't mean if you got flinched that one turn you would have lost the game. So there's always different plays, there's always different ways of playing the game, and it's just one of those things that you've always got to consider as well. Now, one of my friends, if he's watching this video, he'll know who he is. But he made a little post on Facebook a little while ago, saying that just feeling that he was frustrated and whatever because he kept getting flinched and the RNG just didn't seem to go in his way at all. And basically, I just put quite a flippant comment on there saying, don't use slow Pokemon. Don't use so many slow Pokemon. But there's so many things that people kind of overlook, and that is that basically if you're using slow Pokemon, then you are moving last. You are basically giving your opponent the, kind of the upper hand. You're giving them the chances to flinch you. You're giving them the chances to get the critical hits on you before you get them on them, basically. So, slow Pokemon, although, this is one of those things that I quite find, I find quite amusing about the whole sort of myth about the world's metagame being a lot bulkier as well, because, thinking back to 2013 when I was preparing for Worlds, I'm thinking, right, so I'm probably going to be playing some bulky teams and whatever. I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that at all, because I knew I would have potentially had the upper hand. I might have outsped more things with Breloom, get the Spore off. If you're using a slow team, then you've got to pay the consequences. Yeah, you might get more bulk, you might still hit really hard, but momentum is, a massive thing. I mean, momentum is a completely different thing, but, if you're using slow Pokemon, then you're almost inviting, bad luck to happen on you. Before I started using this team, almost religiously, I played with Trick Room quite a lot. It was... I don't know, I think I've mentioned this before. I don't know if anyone listening to this was watching them, but there was a UK versus Germany little friendly stream that was going on at the beginning of, no, it was at the end of 2012, and that was the first time that I became somewhat of a known person, I guess, in Pokemon VGC. And at that time I was using a Trick Room team with like Porygon 2 on it, and what else was there? There was all kinds of stuff. I had a Gallade on there as well for something green. I had Chandelure, I had Jellicent, I had Marowak, and I had Scrafty. And it was, I really liked that team. It was a good team for the format, but it was slow. And so if I got flinched, if a critical hit came on, my Trick Room setter or whatever, I lost all momentum, and because it was so reliant on Trick Room, I just lost the game. I'm sure I've mentioned this before as well, but in one of the, international challenges back then, the first one in 2013 actually, I got paired with my friend Ben, Kiriaku, who basically, Togekiss, Air Slash, Flinch, didn't get Trick Room, lost the game. So it's as simple as that, and basically that game was probably the game that gave me that hard lesson. If you're going to use slow things, then bad things will happen to you. You can flinch, you give almost the momentum to your opponent in a way. So that's one thing, like the whole fast versus slow thing. Obviously, if you are using faster Pokemon, then you're frail and you need to compensate for that as well. But just this is just a talk basically regarding to the RNG in Pokemon. Obviously, you want to use accurate moves as well. I have a tendency of making teams with very, very accurate moves. The team, the Arnhem team that I'm sure you've seen a million times now with the Lipe and the Breloom and everything. The lowest accurate move on that team is 90%. And that is Rock Slide and Swagger. Then there's 195, which is Icy Wind as well. So I, almost instinctively, when building my teams, want to use accurate moves. Rotom Wash is a fantastic Pokemon, but I don't really like using it because you kind of have to use Hydro Pump on it. Which is 80% accurate. I would not really feel comfortable using 80%, an 80% accurate move, especially in an official tournament where it actually mattered. The lowest, interestingly, the lowest accurate move I ever used in an official tournament was last year in the German Nationals. I used a Jumpluff with. It had Wide Lens on it, the accuracy one, but it had Sleep Powder on there, which put Sleep Powder's accuracy up to 82%, which worried me a lot. And I did miss a disproportionate amount of sleep powders in that tournament. So, I was a little bit disgruntled. I was a little bit, not too happy with that. But, I mean, I can't complain because it's sleep powder and it's 82% accurate. So, okay, so I might have missed more than, 1 out of 5 or whatever. But it is still quite a low accuracy. So I couldn't complain about that. Now, obviously status, there's a lot of status in games. Here's a different page with all the different sort of statuses. Status injects a lot of RNG into the game as well. Obviously, a freeze from an ice beam or a paralysis from a thunderbolt, that is something that is uncontrollable. You can't really control that so much. But there's things like sleep, there is the paralysis, full paralysis chance to 25% on that. Where's paralysis? It's up here somewhere. Where is paralysis? It's right in front of you, Barry. Okay, so, you want to be able to deal with things basically statusing your team as well. So, if you allow yourself to get paralyzed, if you allow your opponent to confuse all of your Pokemon, then, there's a good chance you're going to lose. So, if you're using a team that an opponent's Thundurus can just basically thunder wave your entire team and it can swagger your entire team, then don't complain if that Thundurus leads on your team. It just paralyzes everything and it swaggers everything, because that is your responsibility to stop that happening. You need to be able to get a safeguard up, or you need to be able to taunt the Thundurus reliably, or you need to be able to, maybe if the problem is Thundurus or Lightwood, for example, you can have something with Quick Guard. That helps as well. You can use Lumberries as well. Lumberries are fantastic items. It's quite amusing now, actually. The most popular, I think anyway, the most popular item for Terrakion going around now is Lumberry. I used on my Nationals team in 2013. I used Lumberry on that Terrakion there, before I started using a fighting gym that I had at Worlds. Now, that Lumberry basically allowed me, in Manchester especially, in the UK National, that Lumberry allowed me to top cut, because I got frozen twice in that tournament, but the Lumberry saved me. So, Lumberry is a fantastic item. If, it's again, I think it's a trap that people sort of fall into. They just think of offense and they think, right, what item can I put on my Pokemon that makes it do more damage? And you see in singles that everyone puts a life orb on everything. It's either life orb or leftovers basically, or a choice item on something. It's different to that in VGC obviously. But if you're struggling with an item on a Pokemon and you've got a Lumberry free, Lumberry is a fantastic item that can just pull you out of, nasty situations, basically. Lumberry is fantastic. As well, I've got Cresselia on my team, so I've listed, the Lipid and the Breloom and the Thundurus and the Terrakion, which are all, fairly RNG heavy. I've got Cresselia on my team as well, which has got Calm Mind, as I'm sure, you've seen on the videos. And unless it's, unless you've got a mega Slowbro setting up in front of your opponent's team, you can't set up, you can't Calm Mind, you can't, bulk your Pokemon out turn after turn and not expect a critical hit at some point as well. I mean, here's the critical hit screen here. We can see that in Generation 6, it's still, 6.25% chance of a critical hit. Thankfully, I mean, it is quite nice that they reduce the damage of a critical hit from double to by 1.5. So at least the critical hit doesn't do quite so much. But if I've got my Cresselia setting up in front of an opponent's team, then I can't expect it not to get critical hit at some point. I can't expect it not to get a flamethrower, a heat wave burn on it at some point if it's taking so many hits. I mean, you've always got to have the numbers in mind in your head. So, it does happen. Like, if I set up with Cresselia, I'm thinking, whatever, I've won this game, unless I get a critical hit. It does happen. So, you know, if you've got a Pokemon, you know, and not Mega Slowbro with the Shell Armor, that's setting up on your opponent's Pokemon, then you, again, like, if you're taking turns, if you're taking hits, it doesn't matter if, like, if you're setting up, you will get a critical hit. You know, something can happen. As long as there are side effects on the move hitting that Pokemon, they will eventually happen. You know, in one of the, actually it was the Yeovil Premier Challenge that I went to a couple of weekends ago. Thankfully I won that tournament, but in the, I think it was the 4th Swiss round of the tournament, basically I got my Cresselia at +2, I think, and it just sat in front of my opponent's team, and it was going to run through it. But he brought out his Aegislash, which I, you know, could have checked. You know, so the Aegislash was not really too much of a problem. It got one Shadow Ball off onto Cresselia, which I'm thinking, you know, okay, it's going to do, you know, what, with 2 Calm Minds, it'll probably do about 35% or something. But the first Shadow Ball got a critical hit on me, and so, you know, I wasn't too impressed with that, and I did end up losing that game. But you know, it is an example of something that can happen. So don't set up with your Pokemon and just expect it to be invincible. So, you know, let's start to have a look at a few of the different statuses and how we can sort of try and, you know, sort of play around them, see how we can, you know, play with them as well. You know, let's start with sleep, seeing as there's a nice Heracross sleeping on the floor here. You know, sleep is obviously, you know, I'm not going to say the main, but it is probably the main status that people sort of associate with when they look at my team, because I've got the Brillium on there. So, because I spore things quite often, I play with sleep turns quite often as well. And that means, if I outspeed something and put it to sleep, it can wake up the next turn. There's a 1 in 3 chance of it waking up the next turn. If it doesn't, then there's a 50-50 chance, you know, basically, if it'll wake up the next time or not. But I don't want to be playing in a way that if it does wake up on that first turn and it does get a move off, I've lost the game just like that, because it can happen. 1 in 3, you know, like I was saying with the 30% flinch chance from Rock Slide, 30% is, and well, 33% with the you know, first turn wake is it's a big chunk. You know, a third is a big possibility. It can happen. So I mean, you can switch. You can still try and not basically ignore the Pokemon that's asleep, thinking, yeah, it's asleep, it's never going to wake up, kind of thing. You know, sometimes, especially if I'm playing against a Trick Room team or something, and I don't really have a choice. But it's absolutely vital that he doesn't get Trick Room up. I might sleep it, and I might swagger it the next turn as well, just in case it does get that 1 in 3 chance of waking up. It's got to go through a 1 in 2 chance of not hitting itself to get off that move as well. So again, it's another situation of putting the numbers in my favour, basically. So, you know, if you put something to sleep, don't just ignore it. Don't think, oh, it's out of the game. It will wake up. It will potentially wake up next turn. So don't fall into that trap. Paralysis, you know, obviously is another one that's on my team. I mean, outside of the speed control aspect of it, the 25% chance to not move can be crippling. It can be nasty. It really can, and especially if you know, your opponent's paralyzed or whatever, and you're rock sliding them, then, you know, you can, you know, really get back into games that you have, you know, otherwise no chance of getting back into. Like, you know, if, for example, there's an Aegislash and I've got Terrakion and, you know, Thundurus or whatever, you know, I would basically just paralyze it and rock slide it, and then just, you know, keep rock sliding to try and keep the flinches off, and then get the Thunderbolts and keep your fingers crossed that basically either flinches or gets a full paralysis, because those two together, you know, it turns into almost like, you know, not exactly, but almost a 50-50. It's just like a coin flip at that point, whether that Pokemon is moving or not. So paralysis, especially combined with a rock slide, is, again, it can be really, really debilitating, you know, especially if there's like a confusion in there as well. So, you know, another reason why you want to be safeguarding your team against you know, status. You know, freeze is a really nasty status. Obviously, like, there's no RNG in like poison or burn or whatever outside of side effects from moves like flamethrower or a sludge bomb or whatever. But freeze is a pretty nasty condition. But you know, there is some RNG in there, because every turn you are frozen, you've got a 20% chance to basically Thor, outside of using Scald or any of those other moves that thaw you out. So it's a case of keeping your head together, I guess, because if, for example, your Heatran comes in on an Ice Beam and it freezes, don't just sacrifice that Heatran. You might need that Heatran if, for example, he has got an Amoonguss on his team or whatever, and you can knock out everything other than the Amoonguss. Then it doesn't matter if your Heatran is frozen or not. It will eventually wake up. There's a 1 in 5 chance every turn that it will wake up. It will eventually wake up. Amoonguss can't do anything to Heatran really, and it will wake up and win you the game basically. So even if your Pokemon gets frozen, the game is not necessarily over. It really isn't. Again in Nationals, in the Manchester National in 2013, I'm pretty sure. My Brillium got frozen by something one turn, and I did still end up winning that game just because I kept my head. I didn't get distracted. I didn't get I didn't feel down. I didn't you know what I'm trying to say. I didn't allow it to distract me from the proper thought process that I should have been having with that game. So we've gone through a few of the statuses. I've said again, building up with a Thunder Wave and a Rock Slide and a Swagger and things like that. Stuff like that might, it can definitely put games into your favour, but with a team like mine, you've definitely got to know when to turn on, the Scrag, when to rely on stuff like this, because this is, probably one of the, I guess it's one of the things that you can kind of fall into the trap of doing if you did just sort of pick up my team or a team like this. You might have the urge just from turn 1 just to think, I'm in a bad position, turn 1, I'm going to Thunder Wave, I'm going to Rock Slide, or I'm going to Thunder Wave and I'm going to Swagger or something like that. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes that might be the the best thing to do, but a lot of the time it isn't. So if you do have these options, it still might not necessarily be better than just trying to switch your way out of bad situations and playing the game like normal anyway. So you've definitely got to know when you need to rely on things like this. So I don't know, Pokemon, it's an interesting game. I always describe it as like a combination of sort of kind of chess and poker, I guess, but there is this RNG element in there as well, and the RNG is I suppose it is what keeps us playing the game. It's what keeps us addicted. If we lose a game because we get a little bit unlucky, because and I'm not saying that if you lose a game to a bit of RNG going in out of your favour, then that hasn't you might have played the game perfectly, but like a Thunderbolt paralysis and a full paralysis off that can still just lose you the game potentially unjustly as well. It can happen, obviously it can happen, but it's what keeps the game interesting. If you lose a game, you want to go and win some more. At least I do. I can never finish a Pokemon session on a loss. I've always got to win my last game. Finish with a good healthy mental position. I don't know. I've got a degree in psychology, so maybe that's one of the things that goes towards me being pretty strong at this game. I've got a good mind, so you've always got. Whatever happens, Pokemon, you've got to keep your mind on the game. But it's interesting, isn't it, this RNG, because you can use it to give yourself opportunities you might not otherwise had, but it can also take opportunities from you, in a unjustified way, you might think yourself. But there's always plays around, ways that you can play around it and take it into consideration. So you've always got to have your thinking cap on. You've always got to think, what is the worst case scenario? He could get a Thunderbolt paralysis on me, and or whatever. You've got to take basically as many things out of the equation as you can do. You've got to play the best moves. When there's I think it's a 45-second timer now, isn't it? When there is a 45-second timer, it can be a little bit difficult to do that. But when you have been playing the game so long, especially with me using the team that I'm using for so long, I know what my best move is. Unless I'm like, you know, just not on the ball that day or whatever. You know, I know what the move is, and like I'm super comfortable with that team, so like I just, you know, win basically, you know, a lot of the time with it. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. RNG is a funny thing, but you know, I think I've rambled on for enough. I can't really think of too much else that I can say about RNG. I mean, if you want to ask me anything about RNG as well, then, you know, please feel free to you know, comment on this. But you know, I hope you've enjoyed this little sort of run through with of various RNG things that can go on. We've got the encore is a flinching. There you go. So I mean, obviously it's nice to have good knowledge of the game as well. You know, obviously you need to know what moves can flinch. You know, so. You know, if there's a Hydreigon sitting in front of you, you can think, or it could flinch me with a Dark Pulse, or if there's a Raikou there, you could think, oh, it could flinch me with an extra sensory, or you know, whatever. You know, a Gyarados with an Ice Fang or something. You know, there's always something. You've always got to, you know, obviously the more knowledge, the better. A Waterfall's another big one that can flinch. Zen Head, but Iron Head as well. Wherever Iron Head is, yeah, here it is. So, you know, Mega Metagross can be a bit of a flinching machine with Iron Head and Zen Headbutt as well, if it hits its moves. But, you know, play the game, knowing all of your options. If you know all of your options and you're in good mind, then you should be able to make the best move for that turn. So, you know, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope, you know, I might have helped some of you. You know, please, you know, let me know if you know, if this has been of any benefit, because I mean, you know, it's nice to feel, you know, useful in some way. So thanks for watching this, guys. Hope I haven't bored you too much, but yeah, thanks for watching this. Wow, it's nearly half an hour I've been going, so with minimal notes as well. That's pretty cool. So whatever. Thanks for watching this, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Hope you've you know, got something from it. But you know, please again feel free to like and share the channel. We've just gone over 1,000 subscribers, so that's huge. Like for a channel that hasn't been going too long like this, that's massive. So I'm really chuffed. I'm over the moon with that. I might do some kind of fun you know, 1,000 subscriber video or something. But you know, put, you know, any suggestions for that as well. I was thinking about doing a you know, random Pokemon generator team or something, and seeing how that went, but I don't know, we'll see. But you know, again, I'll stop waffling. So I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to, you know, like, share, you know, share this with all your friends or whatever if you want to. But thanks for watching, and goodbye for now. Goodbye, internet.